from ERM. Sean is currently the managing partner for power in the Asia Pacific region and environmental resources management. He's responsible for the power division of ERM throughout the Asia Pacific region. And while Nina has more than 22 years of experiences in the field of sustainability risk management, especially focusing on the social risks in the new capital project developments. So let's give a big hand to Sean first.
Thank you for the introduction. And I've just got Nina as a backup in case something too technical comes across the presentation. No, I have read through it, so I do understand what I'm talking about. We're going to try and talk within our 20-minute time frame. Firstly, I will speak about general trends across the environmental and social sphere that are relevant to Nepal, and then Nina will talk about specific examples that she's worked on within the country. So, concern over environmental and social risk is growing. That's a fact. I joined ERM myself 3.5 years ago. I come from a power development background, and one of the things I've noticed in the last 18 years I've worked in the sector is the higher focus and priorities that need to be given to undertaking environmental and particularly social risk mitigation earlier and earlier within a project. Some of the main growth risk areas, I'm afraid that no one can read that, but luckily on my printout I can still read it. On the environmental side, extreme weather events. We're all aware of the increasing frequency of major weather events, natural catastrophes, including earthquakes, human-made environmental catastrophes, biodiversity loss and loss of the ecosystems, those ecosystems that support the people in the region of the infrastructure project that you're developing, water crises and climate change. On the societal side, food crises caused by issues regarding water, etc., pandemics, chronic diseases, income disparity, etc. And political and social stability, which can also, all the effects caused by social unrest can not only affect individual projects, but can affect, obviously, the overall social fabric of a country. Okay, what's happening? Increased NGO attention. Now, it can be looked at that you could look at it with dismay that there's going to be increased NGO attention on your project. Or you can look at it as an opportunity to engage, overcome the issues, explain what's going on to all interested parties as early as possible. So there's obviously international NGOs, there's local NGOs, there's increased scrutiny caused by the availability of different types of media. There's increasing coverage of any events that are taken by protest groups, particularly invasion of AGMs, and any particularly listed company or multilateral support agency will not want to see a large protest disrupting their AGMs. There's also direct action on the local scene. So what's happening? A lot of it's driven by the increase in social media, internet platforms, which can increase the speed of dissemination of allegations of environmental and social mismanagement. Now, these allegations don't necessarily need to be true, but they can be rumours that can be propagated quickly. If you have a proper mitigation plan in effect, with good communication with all interested parties, that can go some way to prevent and reduce the impact of any of these rumours or allegations getting further. The triggers on social media will trigger further global media information and as well. So this is a slide that is being developed by ERM. It's actually on the extractive projects and mining and resources type survey. Projects in a 4-year period, 46% of them were delayed. What were the causes of delays? 42% of the delays were caused by social opposition, 35% by environmental concerns, 23% by permitting issues, 6% by land access. All of these are pretty much linked. Social opposition, environmental concern, permitting issues are caused by quite often social interaction, land access triggered by the same issues. That number has the potential to get higher as well, caused by the reasons that I discussed earlier in this presentation. Now, what happens when there are issues? First of all, the issues that can be can affect your project: resettlement, land acquisition. We've seen a number of projects, particularly power projects, delayed by the land acquisition process. Biodiversity in particular, community unrest, pollution, water scarcity, child labour. All these things are obviously very bad promotion for your project. So what are those risks caused by those issues? The reputational risk of your company, project delays and or loss of government support and approval, additional development costs, license to operate within the community is compromised. It can cause operational shutdowns, revenue stream delays, disruptions, and then financial risk. So what happens? The banks themselves are concerned about the delays on the project, the risks that are associated with your project. Nothing can dismay a bank shareholder more, for example, than an allegation of child labour being worked on one of your projects, underage labour. Therefore, you breach some of your covenants, your cost of funding could increase, have a direct effect on the profitability of your project. Number of projects, either because of requirements of lenders, or requirements of the sponsors individually, requirements of multilateral support, either for political risk insurance or lending, soft loans, etc., will require you to meet the IFC guidelines, which were implemented and enacted in January 2012. I won't go through these in too much detail, but the 8 different standards include resource efficiency and pollution prevention, assessment and management of environmental and social risks and impacts, labour and working conditions, indigenous peoples. Are those peoples essentially the guidelines say anyone involved with the project needs to be better off when that project is complete. Community health and safety and security, a number of issues when a large construction crew comes onto a site, disrupts the life of the local people in that area. Land acquisition, how is that land acquisition made? Is it through a cooperative agreement? Is it forced, etc.? Biodiversity conservation and sustainability. Some offset agreements if you replanting, if you have to cut down existing forests, for example. And cultural heritage, the archaeological site investigations, and to make sure that those cultural heritage requirements are still met. Okay, what are the keys for success in managing environmental and social risks? Need to implement a robust system from project start. So that environmental management plan needs to be initiated, discussed and agreed as quickly as possible by all project proponents, by all people who are affected by the project. You have an environmental management plan that starts when the project starts. If more people are going to be happy and will support the project throughout the ups and downs through the construction and operational phase. How do you manage the social risks? You establish a grievance mechanism. share benefits, as I mentioned before. You make sure people are better off. That's a requirement of the funding of a number of the supporters of projects like Open, for example. Stakeholder engagement. This is critical, that engage with local communities to gain trust, to build broad community support and secure the social license to operate. I'm actually an engineer myself, and when I joined ERM and was in some of these stakeholder engagement meetings, it amazed me how some of the project proponents would go to a village site, for example, for a hydropower project somewhere, and they would take with them a list of the technical discussions of the project, what was going to happen technically, a lot of schematic diagrams, a lot of quite high-level technical solutions, which were in some cases incomprehensible to some of the people that you were trying to persuade that the project would be bring benefits to them. So there needs to be more and more social support and explanations of the project implementation plan, the compensation plan, and how those plans are going to be implemented and monitored. Okay, that's a little bit small for anyone to read, but I believe that all presentations will be available to everyone in the conference. Okay. Another key for success in managing risks is close coordination with the engineers. So as a project is designed, technical calculations are made, there needs to be discussion between environmental and social consultant and the engineer to make sure that the decisions being made from a technical basis are the best decisions for the total project. Not necessarily best technically, but the best combination decisions. Sometimes that may mean that, for example, for a hydropower project, there might be 3 sites, one of them, 3 sites on a river, one of them might be best in terms of megawatts generated, another one might be slightly less, but the environmental and social components of that site are much less risky than the first site. Okay, now I'll hand over to Nina, who will talk a little bit more about Nepal.
Thank you, Sean. Just a little bit of a background. I've been working in Nepal for the last 3 years on 2 large projects, Upper Karnali and Upper Trishuli. A lot of what I'm saying today is based on some of the lessons we have learned, not specifically, are not site-specific examples, but those are the things that we need to keep in mind while developing hydropower in Nepal. So obviously the first one is pick the right location, and technically, obviously, picking up the right location is a major focus. But I think what I'm introducing here are the environmental, social, sustainability considerations in picking up the right locations. The landscape position is important because, generally upper tributaries are generally preferred over the main stem sites, but do consider cumulative impacts. And I think increasingly, and the kind of development that each river basin in Nepal will have, it's not just your project in isolation. Upstream, downstream, there are impacts upstream which have impact on your project, downstream, both from biodiversity, from social, from land. So the cumulative impacts become a very important consideration for choosing the location of your project. The whole issue of environmental receptors, where a very critical part is endangered species. And while for some it might not sound the most important consideration, but some of your fishes, some of your most endangered fish are in these tributaries. And because of the cumulative impact, it's not just one project affecting their migration routes and their spawning sites, but there is a whole river basin that's getting impacted. And over a period of time, biodiversity is not a local resource, it's seen as a global resource. There are concerns about some of these species getting cumulatively impacted and potentially disappearing from some locations. So do consider environmental receptors, not just from an impact perspective, but from a global biodiversity perspective. Resettlement, it's very commonly now, will be on a high agenda for everybody. Commonly, but on run-of-river projects, resettlement is not your biggest issue because land acquisition and land footprints are relatively small compared to large storage projects. But still, even those on those lands, the issues around community forestry, for example, different kind of land ownerships. It's complex in Nepal, formal ownerships, informal ownerships. So there are lots of complexities, and so it's not just pure resettlement issue, it's the whole issue of community resources being impacted, not just the river, but also forestry and land. Look at metrics that are non-commercial, and that will give you a good idea of what are the other benchmarks you need to look at when you decide on projects. Hectares inundated per megawatt capacity, people displaced per megawatt capacity, length of the bypass reach. Some of the projects that I'm working on has a very long bypass reach, which means the impact on dewatering is pretty significant in some projects. How do you put that as a consideration for your technical alternatives? A very important part is, because you have a long lead time in developing your hydro projects, please take a good baseline. It really, really helps you over a period of time. So be it hydrology, all your flow data, I'm sure you're looking at it, but do ensure that you have got many years of data. The aquatic ecology, knowing where to sample, what are you sampling, and what is the best, most robust baseline that you can develop. Because at some stage or the other, you have to understand impacts. You may have to defend this whole project location and impacts, and a good baseline always serves that purpose. Look at the whole range of water uses. I think we concentrate on land, but for us, the biggest challenge in hydro projects are uses of land that are fishing, recreational use. A lot of people use, one of the projects that I'm working on has river rafting, has cultural use, and so the stakeholder interest in those rivers are not just people who are losing land, but people who are using the river for various purposes, and getting them all in some kind of a multi-stakeholder dialogue to understand what do we need to do to mitigate those impacts, which are not just local, but there's a global tourism industry also involved. So those are considerations that need to be more sophisticated in our assessment of impact. We've talked about earthquake risks a lot. I've gone to one of my project sites where the landslides have increased, and the whole community which we had assessed, we had done the resettlement plan for, is now living in tents. So the whole assessment of their livelihood becomes redundant. You have to go back and understand what is the new livelihood that they have to understand. What is the new landscape in which the community has to go back and work. So obviously seismic risk and earthquake risks are very important considerations. So obviously design it right. There are so many options that I did not know these options, but it's the run of river, it's a peaking project, it's a storage project. All these have important consideration for impacts. For me, the peaking project impacts downstream of the powerhouse has become an important consideration now. I realized when we're doing the impact assessment, the kind of surge that comes out in a peaking project and the kind of length of the river that surge can impact. So we used to concentrate on just downstream of the dam in terms of a lot of impact, but there is a whole lot of impact downstream of the powerhouse, which we have to now understand. Fish habitats, fish passage, we've never got it perfect. Global experience shows that you've not designed it perfect. So really constantly challenging yourself to find things that can work in your river. And I think the USAID, IFC, World Bank, they're all coming together to understand these issues, look at best technologies available for these kind of impact mitigation. And I've made it red because there's nothing that you cannot move away from the fact that engaging and communicating is a very core part. A hydropower project has a very dispersed footprint. You need to go to talk to people in the powerhouse side, you need to go and talk to people of the reservoir side, downstream of the river, downstream. It's not easy to engage in a structured, formal, continuous manner. And so your process of understanding what you have to engage, how early you have to engage, what is your plan of engagement. The community today, we've had experiences of the community having read every line of the RAP, of the resettlement plan, and asking us specific questions. So they're not just kind of flicking over and just discussing land values. They're understanding impacts, they want to know about the shares, they want to know other benefits, what is the process. Your VDCs are really strong agencies to communicate. So the engaging and the communicating piece, while we all know it's an important thing to do, but how to do it, how continuously through the project development cycle it has to be done, and to what level transparency and disclosure has to come in is I can't underline it enough. And finally, of course, sharing benefits. It's not just about shares. It's the consensus building about your projects. There are various other options to bring local benefits, both in terms of skill development, in terms of local area development. Please ensure that you've got good indicators so that you're tracking those impacts, you're able to demonstrate those impacts. It's not just coming up with a plan which cannot be actually demonstrated. So local benefit will be the way Nepal will go forward in terms of getting the community consensus on hydropower projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. Thanks, Sean. So we're almost there. This is the last panel discussion, and after that we're gonna have a cocktail party at the garden area of the hotel. So let me have the honor to introduce you the moderator for this final panel discussion on the topic of investing in Nepal, experiences and suggested improvements. So let's first give a big hand to Mr. Sachin Joshi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Naviotech, as the moderator of this panel. Yeah, let me also have the honor to invite Mr. Alan Loy back onto the stage, and Mr. Agawo from SJVN Aaron 3 Power Development Company to get back onto the stage again. And I'm going to introduce you some new speakers for this panel discussion. First is Stephanie Babu, who's the Senior Operations Officer from IFC. And Bidya Sigdal, who is the Investment Director of Dharma Fund. And last but not the least, Dr. Sandeep Shah, who is the GM of Humo Power and Vice President and Country Director of StarCraft. Thank you.
I'll try to make this as brief as possible and to the point, and hopefully we'll be able to extract some value for the potential investors and also those who have put in some money in the Nepal energy sector. The way I'd like to conduct this is slightly different from the way it's been done earlier. I'd like to ask the panelists to maybe spend a few minutes telling us a little bit about their own experience of working in Nepal, about their the successes they've achieved, and if there are any challenges they faced while investing in Nepal, and then take it from there. After that, maybe a few questions, and then perhaps a few questions from the audience. Let me now go straight to the panelists. If I could ask at the outset, maybe we did a presentation in the early afternoon, which is really great. But if you could now maybe spend a few minutes in the Nepalese context, that would be great. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much.
It's on.
It's on. Just a very brief introduction. I've been in Asia 25 years. I call this part of my world home. I've lived and worked. I have lived and worked in Indonesia, Vietnam, Hong Kong, mainland China, India, and have done business in most of the jurisdictions. I'm currently based in Singapore. As far as hydro exposure is concerned, I've been involved as a sponsor and project owner and on the board of a number of different hydro projects, notably the ones within Regal Asia, which we have recently put in operation successfully in the north of Vietnam, 30 megawatt Run River, official opening is next week, Wednesday, and we've been supplying successfully power into the grid since that has been commissioned. I was on the board as a non-executive independent director of China Hydroelectric, total installed capacity of 650 megawatts, 24 different run-of-river hydro plants, and I was ultimately tasked by the board as a non-executive independent director to delist that company from the New York Stock Exchange, and successfully sold that to a private equity fund in 2004 and 2004. The portfolio at Infraco Asia, although we are mandated for a number of different infrastructure sectors, including environment, water-based management, transport infrastructure, we have a large portfolio of renewables, notably 2 wind farms in Pakistan, a waste-to-energy facility in Sri Lanka, the 2 run-of-river under development in Arunachal Pradesh in India, and 3 run-of-river hydroelectric power projects here in Nepal with our very valuable joint venture partners, Nepal Power Company, VPC. You've seen our partners earlier today, and also you will hear from them more tomorrow. So since the last 3 years, ever since I took charge of Infraco Asia, we've been heavily involved in the tail end of the development of our very first project together with BBC, which is Kabeli A, a 38 megawatt run-of-river hydroelectric power project. And I would say it's been a bumpy road. It's been very, very challenging. Not so much on the financing side. We have been fortunate enough that we did a lot of value engineering on the project. We brought back the total project value from what was roughly $130 million to what is currently standing at a total project value of just north of $85 million. So that was a major step forward in order to make that project commercially viable. And on the basis of that, we've been able to attract debt financing. So the project's being funded by BBC and ourselves with 30% equity, 70% debt. But this amount of time before the board had actually put our project on the agenda, and in the meantime, our generation license lapsed. So you're in this visual circle whereby you need to work, and this is the importance of having a local joint venture partner who is very much in tune with the local authorities and supposed to work with them, alongside with them, which they do. But there is a challenge in Nepal whereby government agencies are working in silos and are not necessarily working in sync. Having said that, we have been able to get an approval in place with NEA. Our PPA has been approved, and we hope to work through our remaining set of CPs in order to commence construction in the second part of 2016. So that's the story of Kabeli A. It has been much more challenging, and it was much longer than where we are today than we had envisaged about 4 years ago when we started.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Agarwal, if you could just share a few minutes of your, your experience in a few minutes. Yep. It's working.
Good afternoon. As I said, our organization is a government undertaking, government of India. We ventured in Nepal because the government of India wanted us to participate. But all the things were quite well. We did not find much of a problem, except that there was some delay in signing of the PPAs. Delay is slightly complicated. A lot of things we might have learned from developed countries or from other countries who have not encountered real problems of our countries like India, Nepal, Bhutan. Otherwise, it could have been more simplified. That I then will do my calculation also. The contract should be as simple But in overall, the experience has not been that. After signing the PDA, we have been in cooperation from the government agencies. And as far as I am concerned, there is a slight delay in decision making, but it is done. The atmosphere is receptive, and with their cooperation, maybe the IBM and government of Nepal officials, we may be able to start the construction maybe early part of the next year, in January or February. So it's not a bad experience, and I think the similar experience is the main benefit in most of the developing countries. So the rules also are being whenever there is some problem in clearances or something like that, the government is going to the extent of modifying the rules or making the special approvals. So we are not facing the problems, and hope we will be able to commission sometime in 2021 or 2022.
Thank you. Stepan, if you could spend a few minutes telling us about your experience in Nepal.
Well, IFC has been here for 20, 25 years, and we're the lenders for Kimchi and Budikushi. Then there was a stop, and IFC came back about 5 years ago on various projects. Kabeli, I won't speak about Kabeli. We hope it's going to be the first success. Hopefully construction will start this year. So then it will give our managers some comfort that things can move in Nepal, because 5 years is a long time. We're also involved in Karnali and Upper Trishuli, two projects which we have discussed. On Karnali, just want to mention, if you compare to Laos, when we saw the presentation of David, the developers of Karnali as well as Atom 3 are giving a lot of free equity and free energy. I mean, compared to Laos, it's amazing. I mean, if you consider 27% free equity, 900 megawatt project, that's around 300 megawatts, $600 million given for free to Nepal. And even if the PDA has been signed, there's still some people criticizing that Karnali should be done by local companies. For us, it's a bit amazing when you say, well, it's a $600 million gift to Nepal. Well, what's going on the project is moving well, but it's challenging now on the Indian side because, as probably most of you know, the Indian power prices are going down. So on one hand, you're giving a lot to Nepal, but you were expecting power price of 3.5, 4 rupee. Now it's 2.5. There's no real peak power yet in India, so it's challenging. I mean, the project is moving, but we'll see when we get there. The other project, which is totally different, which is for the domestic market, is called Upper Trishuli. We had the presentations about the problems that the earthquakes. Because of the earthquake, I mean, there was landslides, and the site has been damaged, and the communities have been quite affected. So our sponsor, a group of Korean companies, have been very proactive in supporting the communities. But PDA is still not signed. Now counting 25, 26 months, there's still some issues, and the PDA is still not signed. The Koreans are ready to start construction, but PDA and of course the PPA are still to be signed. So, and this is going to be the model for future multilateral investment in terms of PDA. I mean, for us, it's not an optional thing. I mean, the PDA, the concession, is the key document because it's the rights and obligations of both parties. And this is where you have all the what we call termination clause if there's a problem with the project. So based on the Upper Trishuli draft concessions, I mean, we've been discussing with other developers, and we have a few more projects down the pipeline. The question now is, I mean, should we wait to start PDA negotiations for other projects, or should we go forward? I mean, then there's the capacity of the ministry to negotiate one, if not more, PDA at the same time. I think I will stop here.
Thank you. Next, if I could ask Vidya, who is with the Tolma Fund, the few impact funds which has a presence in Nepal, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you've been doing till now and any successes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So, Tolma Impact Fund is now in operation for 1.5 years. It took us almost 3 years to raise a fund solely for dedicated to Nepal. So, we have managed to raise a $26 million fund from both development financial institutions, primarily based on Europe, the European Union countries. We have so far managed to conclude on 2 deals, and we are currently working on a few more. So the deals which we have managed to conclude is one is a 6.5 megawatt hydropower plant, and another is a pharmaceutical company. So we have been actively participating and actively advising a number of small SME companies in Nepal, because our ticket size allows us to do somewhere around 5,000 up to $3 million in a minority equity.
Thank you. Next, I could request Dr. Sandeep Shah, whose experience in hydropower development in Nepal is extensive. He's been involved since the early 1990s as an engineer, as a designer, designing development, as a manager as well. Sandeep, if you could share some of your insights.
Thank you, Sachin. You've already covered. It's been 25 years since I completed my PhD in Canada and came back to Nepal. And it's been a very interesting journey so far. Initially, I started working in the consulting business, and most of the projects which are shown today, like Kalimantan, Middle Mershandi, Lower Mershandi, and quite a few others, those critical scopes which are shown over there, I was a part of the design team. So I do take credit for what has been achieved, and it's still standing out. Now, I really went from a purely technical background to a management role in the year 2000, and I started managing the Botiposi project. And I was engaged with the American owners, and I took up the role of the general manager during construction and operations. IFC was one of the lenders there, in fact the lead lender, and that was up to 2006. Unfortunately, the Americans left at that time due to various reasons, insurgency being one of them, and I moved on to SM Power, which is a StarCraft company. So it's been a 10-year experience with StarCraft in the StarCraft system. Very interesting experience. Technically, I feel quite happy with the way I have performed in the past. I would still love to go back and start doing some calculations and numerical modeling and get back and get my hands dirty again, so to say. Not in the real sense, but start in the business again. And that's what I have been pushing for. Different projects. My role in StarCraft was to take up new projects. And at one time, we were looking at a total portfolio of about 1,400 megawatts greenfield development in Nepal. And this was in the 2006 to 2010 period, when the electricity prices in India were fantastic. And we had just come out of an insurgency in Nepal. Things were looking very positive. The political willingness was there. And a lot of exciting things were happening, power summits, and the government was committing to making reforms in the power sector. The international agencies were coming here again, and trying to see if they could push more funds into the markets here, and responsible developers would look at doing projects both for domestic consumption and for exports. It's been a very interesting journey, even in the last 10 years, I would say, because we were very euphoric about doing projects. We started off with this portfolio of about 1,400 megawatts. We said, okay, let's focus on one medium and one very large-scale project. Kamangossi 3, 650 megawatts, and Gateway 67. And we were quite excited about the whole project. We did feasibility studies, the ESIAs, the sustainability guidelines, and all performance standards, following all the processes, extensive stakeholder communications, and all of that. But the whole point was, can we get into a concession agreement for this larger project, the 650 megawatt. Large dam, large inundation, very complex project, technically, commercially, and to in fact manage construction as well. But we have fantastic experience in doing that, and I really take pride in that. At the end of the day, it was the concession agreement, and we had started working on the concession agreement, the PDA, so as we call it now, since 2010 March. And it was a long, painful process, first with the Energy Ministry, and then when the investment board was created, we were quite positive that yes, there is a dedicated agency which is now going to work on this. We took it up quite wholeheartedly with the investment board, and we did make progress. But we had to give back the project license at the beginning of this year. And if you recall the press release we had from that time, it's very clear. Political instability. We had thought that the political instability was going to be over sooner rather than later. And I think we are still in a transition. Now, coupled with that, we had expected to have a predictable and stable regulatory regime. Legal and regulatory regime should have been stable. But we see ad hoc decisions being made. We see energy crisis bills coming up now, making ad hoc decisions and changes. So the sustainability of the regulatory framework doesn't seem to be in place. Some of the previous speakers have already mentioned about the low price forecasts in the market. Especially in the Indian market, the price forecasts are very low, and it's going to remain low for quite some years. So that is where we were looking for exporting solar power, and now that price forecast has gone away. I think the political stability, the stable regulatory framework, and then an efficient and working bureaucracy is key to the whole process. And we see that there were increased hurdles in the bureaucratic process. Approvals of permits and licenses and all of the other things will go with that. There was a lot of hurdles being created. And I think the straw which really broke the camel's back was not the earthquake last year. It was the blockade that we faced. And we were looking at exporting more than 80% of the power generated to our neighbor in the south. And our concern was if the relationship sours again in the future, even though we may have a long-term PPA and all the guarantees and all of that, the technician on the other side may just switch off power, and we'll be left stranded with all this power in our hands and nowhere else to save. There is nowhere else to sell the power. It was a difficult decision we had to take, but we had to take it. We had been working on this project since 2007 February. We spent more than $1 billion on this project. And we had looked at taking it forward. Unfortunately, we had to drop it. StarCraft has been in Nepal for the last 23 years. We did the treaty project under very, very difficult circumstances. We had the civil war going on. We had a lot of issues at that time. We were the first international project financed project to be developed in Nepal. We took a high risk, but we managed the project very well, and we completed the project in time, on budget. And it's been a fantastic, very well operated and maintained the plant. But what we have realized is that in the 90s, early 90s, when economic liberalization had just started in Nepal, there was a lot of political willingness to take projects forward, and also the bureaucracy was very efficient, which we see that's lacking very much. The political scene is very much fragmented. The willingness, I doubt, and the bureaucracy is sort of becoming very dysfunctional. And I hate to say that, but that's the reality.
Thank you. Just taking up on what Sandesh said and what Stefan mentioned earlier about the price forecast in India. When these large projects in Nepal were conceived, the price forecasts were perhaps in the 6 to 7 cents region. Now we're talking about perhaps 4 cents or lower. Now, would development of farm projects, which are for export to India, would these projects still make sense? Would we be able to attract those foreign investments in the sector now? And it's a reality that the power prices in India have bottomed out, or maybe not bottomed out, I don't know.
Hydro is very site specific. I mean, almond tree and canopy are two of the best. But by giving a lot in terms of free power and free equity, I mean, it makes project challenging. So it's going to be down to the financing. I mean, financing will have to be very competitive, and price will. I mean, there will be a bet by the companies. Hoping that in a year time price will recover a bit. I mean, I cannot speak for the various companies, but I mean it will be a combination of long-term contracts, maybe hopefully a bit of spot peak power, maybe ancillary services. So I mean, since unfortunately I started, the offtake strategies have changed. I mean, there's been pressure here as well on irrigation issues, so projects have changed. ERM can attest to that. So I mean, we'll see. But those projects are good. Then for other projects, the question, I mean, the good projects will survive, and the less marginal projects will not be able to export. But it comes down also to, right now, there's a kind of feed-in tariff up to 100 megawatt. Makes sense up to 20 megawatt, but not 200 megawatt. Some projects can survive at 5.1, now it's about 5.5 cents, the average. Some projects can survive, but some projects cannot survive at that rate.
Right, thank you. But you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you would normally look at a return in the mid-teens. Now, with a pricing of around 4 cents or below, do you think you would ever be able to justify investing in power projects with that sort of offtake price?
I'm going to put aside KWA because that PPA has been signed and it's for Nepal an unusual project given the fact that the tariff structure is partially dollar denominated. So we got ourselves comfortable with that. We got ourselves very comfortable with two multilaterals who are supporting us on the debt side, IFC being one, as well as their parent company, for better words, the World Bank. So got to park KWA, but and where we are focusing on as well, in all the countries where we operate, we would undertake projects, and particularly the hydro sector, for local supply. We would not look at projects which are meant to be there for export. This is part of our DNA, this is part of our mandate. We're there to provide a better access to better infrastructure for poor people in that particular country. So, if you then look at the poly-tariff structures, plus the fact that there is, in today's environment, in Nepal, more liquidity in the market with local makers than there was in the past, we could still make those projects commercially viable. There's another, obviously, challenge which you need to get your head around, and that's the compulsory IPO strategy which you have, whereby, given the fact where we are today, and you look at even the secondary market, for projects who have started construction, that are not even commissioned, there seems to be, and that's a slight worry, there seems to be an overheating sort of emphasis on hydro projects from a retail investment point of view. Coming back on the returns which we need to make, because ultimately our shareholders want us to exit at some point in the future and recycle those development dollars to pick up new projects, we currently still believe that we can make the projects in Nepal work.
Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Agarwal. Yours is one of the 2 projects where a PDA has been signed successfully. What do you think were the key elements that ensure that you negotiated favorably for both parties this PDA? What were the key elements, do you think? Do you believe that your being part of the Indian public sector helped through a little bit of a wink and a nudge from the Indian government as well? Did that play a role?
Yes, it helped to some extent. And on the Indian public sector, it helped. And secondly, to some extent on the legal aspects like time, we were slightly afraid. 5 years period is quite uncertain for a project like this, particularly when there is no infrastructure. Secondly, the 25-year period, that what we negotiated, but we could not get success. We ultimately had to come down to 25 years after the commission. Otherwise, had it been 35 years, 35 years to 40 years, this would have been a better proposition. Because we know that a lot of money is going to be spent in the infrastructure. See, for the road itself, we are spending about, in Nepali currency, about 4 billion Nepali, which is going to add to the cost of it. Ultimately, that is going to be charged to the consumer. So, the government also should consider that you cannot kill the hand. If you kill the hand, you cannot take the hand. And the scenario should not be that just take everything in one go. Get everything done from the developer. Take free power also and get everything done from the developer. Everything wants that developers do all the things. So that's what we should get a thing that at least infrastructure should be developed by the state itself. Because that is going to be handed over to the public itself. But that is going to be used by the public itself. And why we should get that, if suppose a road is going to be constructed for the project, that is going to be used for the public also. Why we should get it IE clear? See, our project itself, road, it is not being transferred in our hand, in our name. But still we have to get all the clearances. So I think the government procedure should be made simple. If suppose in our India also, we are doing some approach roads which is going to be used for public, we give to deposit work to public works department or National Highway Authority, they get all, we don't do anything. And that is charged to this thing, okay, we contribute some money to expedite the process, but not that we have to bear. Because ultimately it is the consumer who has to bear the cost, and not our project authorities.
Yes, obviously everything will be loaded.
Everything will be loaded.
Yes.
So now our project cost at this 2014 level, almost 2014 or 15 level, it is coming almost 4 rupees 90 paisa in Indian rupees. And by the time we complete it, we will go cross 6 rupees. That means 6 rupees means
that's about 10 cents.
8 cents or 10 cents
Yes.
per unit. That is very costly. In India, the power is coming cheaper because of the mix of the power. Because some of the projects like Bhagara Dam or old projects which have been commissioned in 60s, their cost of power project is cost of power is coming only some 0.7 rupees or 70 paisa, 60 paisa, or somewhere it is 5 paisa. So when we are mixing the power, it is coming cheaper, but not in overall. And if suppose in hydro itself we go on doing the cost overrun and time overrun and then charge everything on the project, then it becomes slightly difficult to estimate. So procedure also have to be made simpler. Infrastructure has to be developed in parallel, and that's what could have been easier. But in the PDA we could not do, because at that time our Prime Minister also was coming and they had to sign those questions were there. So we could not prolong this idea of the PDA.
Thank you. Perhaps a question for Vidya. John Ma Impact Fund. It's like a private equity fund, right? But there are no regulations governing private equity in Nepal. How are you going around it? I mean, how are you managing it?
So this is the most unfortunate part because there are no regulations regarding private equity. And fortunately, the finance minister for the first time has spoken the word private equity and its regulation in the budget speech. So because of the lack of regulation, we could not domicile the fund within the country. We had to domicile it offshore. So that's one major challenge that we had to do because with that offshore domicile of the fund, for every transaction that we make, every taking that we make, we need to get a separate FDI. So that is a major challenge that we have.
Right. I'd like to go to Sandeep. Sandeep, you've been involved in the power sector in Nepal for the last 2 decades, more than 2 decades. The power deficit in the country is worse than when it was 2 decades ago. Who is to be blamed? What do we need to do?
That's the most difficult question I ever faced. I think to a large extent we blame ourselves. We elected the politicians, right? And they are deciding our destiny. We will get the right politicians in place, but we have a choice. So I think, we need to look at the whole picture. Yes, it could have been much better. Right? There have been willingness and I would say a more statesman-like approach from our politicians. Look at the broader interest of the country rather than just focus on the interest of the party, and also to making sure that they stay long enough on the positions of power. So there's a lot of things to be learned from them. But they were making the laws. We were providing input, but at the end of the day, we required the stamp from them. The first Electricity Act, which came out in 1992, still very good. It's probably one of the best electricity acts in the South Asian region. Probably the electricity act of India is slightly better now. But the policy and also the implementation part was excellent in the 90s. But what happened? What did the bureaucrats lose focus on that? I think one key term which an ambassador made at one of the last power summits was politicization of bureaucracy. Right? Bureaucrats are heavily under the influence of politicians. They are not able to make independent decisions. They are always being influenced, and I think they are also, moreover, now scared to make decisions because of a certain agency which is there in Nepal, which is taking oversight over everything which is done. People are scared to sign off on anything, and I feel for them. I think that fear mentality has to go away. People need to take bold decisions and stand by those decisions. And then, they need to be backed up by the politicians. And then you can see that things can be implemented and things can move forward. Till that time, I think Kegarne is the only solution. We're stuck with the politicians.
Right, I suppose we got to move on. Something you said caught my attention. You mentioned about the project cost estimate of Kaveri initially was $130 million, which has now been scaled down to about $85 to $90 million, despite the significant time that has lapsed since your original cost estimate. So, did you, whoever you employed to do the cost estimates, did they make a big mistake, or did you find is it because of the improvement in the technology or something else? It's a significant difference.
I think there are multiple reasons for it. It was originally tendered out, and there were cost estimates being done. I guess without a real detailed look at design features and at value engineering, and I think that has been one of the reasons why it was estimated at the amount of money, which is north indeed of $120 million. We took, with multiple teams of consultants, a great look at how can we still provide the same level of standards, and we have not given in on that. And how would we be able to bring back part of the construction period, which is a major cost saving, and looking at value engineering. And sometimes it's a combination of looking at your total project lifetime costing, your capex versus your opex, and not giving in on reliability. But value engineering, construction methods, bringing back the construction schedule has had a major impact.
Thank you. Coming to a slightly different issue here about enforcement of laws, supremacy of contracts, and that sort of thing, property rights and that sort of thing. And I'm directing my question to Stefan, and I'll give you a little bit of background from where, on what I'm coming to. A couple of years ago, one of the highest level government officials in the country, who was also the chair of the local monopoly power utility, there was a formal board decision which essentially blacklisted two power developers, the first private sector power developers that came into the country. These are the Botipasi Power Project and the Kepti Power Project. And the decision was that the contract executed then was not fair, so therefore, and therefore, NEA, the local utility, ended up paying more than what they should have. So therefore, any projects developed by these two developers will not be allowed to develop any other projects in Nepal, and they will be blacklisted. And it's an issue of what sort of message the government is sending about enforcement of contracts, supremacy of contracts. I mean, what does a multilateral like IFC have to say about this?
Well, I heard about the stories, but I don't know all the details. And I mean, I know more about the issue about the sensitivity of dollar PPA, which is needed. All day today we discuss investors can go to different places. Sorry, but I mean, international investors will not take the Nepali devaluation risk. So, I mean, at least the debt and probably the equity needs to be in dollar. That's just the fact. Or the lending will be too high. I mean, we could lend in Nepali rupee, it will be 15%. And back to the enforceability, I mean, that's why we focusing so much on PD and concessions, because concession has rights and obligations on both sides, and there are clauses and there are arbitration, and then we can go to court. I mean, usually 80% of the concession negotiations about termination clause. What happens if the SPV, the special purpose vehicle, goes bust? If it's the fault of the government will have to pay. That's why it takes so long to negotiate this concession, especially for hydro projects.
Well, thanks. Perhaps one last question for Mr. Agarwal. There's a lot of disturbances, political as well as at the local level. Many projects have been delayed because of political disturbances, politically motivated disturbances, and the expectations of the local community which cannot be met. And this has added a lot of costs to power projects here. How do you plan to manage this? Have you accounted for this in your costs estimates?
See, Zivian as a company, we have executed 2 mega projects in India. And what we are afraid of here in Nepal, this is everywhere. This is a uniform phenomena, whether you go mining industry, whether you go hydro industry, the expectation of the people are not like as if it used to be 20 years back or 30 years back. People are educated through TV, media, or internet, Facebook. Everybody is educated. Everybody is educated about their rights. So we also have to think about their benefits also. And as far as we are concerned, we have been carrying extensively these activities. R&R is a continuous activity throughout the duration, not only during construction but during O&M stage also. Skill development, training, placement, and medical care, education. You will be surprised that in India we are giving coaching to bright students even for the entrance for the IIT exams. We are paying their fees. This is one of the way of creating talent. So I think we cannot escape socio-economic parameters. We have to keep. In turn, we are trying to save cost in our technical parameters. Just like I told about that, we have been spending a lot of money on roads, which should have been done by the state, at least approach roads. But okay, we are spending. In place of that, we are doing research that whether we can reduce some of the parameters in the project. Like just now, just 1 month back, we have completed module study and decided to remove the silting charge. With that, we will be able to save about INR 200 crore rupees. That means in Nepal is almost 350 crore rupees will be able to save. So we are trying to save as much as possible in technical parameters. We are trying to save as much as possible in the manpower. Today we have got less than 0.4 per megawatt manpower. So we are trying to save in those things. But we are not compromising in the socio-economic parameters. We are not staying. That is a part of our cost. So that wherever we go, we will do it.
Thank you. Maybe now we're almost there. Perhaps we can take a few questions from the audience. Yeah.
I just wanted to correct some figures that Alar was just pointing out. The initial estimate for Kaveri was around $98 million and not 130. And that was so just on that. So just want to clarify that.
Right. Thank you. Pratik actually is with Button Power, and obviously he has the right figures. But if the audience has any questions for this, expert that we have. If not,
For hydro, it's a bit tricky because what will be the criteria? Is it just a price per kilowatt hour that may need to have a full feasibility study? Some developers like to do their own studies. So hydro is a bit more tricky, but I still think competitive tendering is still the best. And we're helping Nepal actually moving towards bidding eventually. Now the World Bank is doing river basin planning, and eventually they should be tendering by river basin, because that would be a problem. We discussed it a little bit in terms of the cumulative impact, but also projects on the same cascade will need to cooperate, because eventually there will be some peak power plant, and if they don't cooperate, the water will not be there. So tendering on a river basin will be optimal. And just an example on, because I still believe Nepal future is hydro, at least in the next 10 years, solar and wind eventually maybe question marks. But the power of tendering, just a small publicity. I mean, in Africa, we launched an initiative called World Bank Group Solar Scale-Up Initiative, where 2 years ago we were aiming to standardize everything, the concession, the PPA, have some scale and bring some large solar developers. We were hoping maybe to get projects down to 15 cents from 20 cents. We got the first bid in Zambia last Friday, 6 and 7 cents. Yep. So tendering works if it's well designed.
Sandeep, you have any thoughts on this?
Yes. I think, yes, I agree with Stephen that the best way to go forward is through auctions. What we need to do is we need to prepare these projects properly, right? So that there is no room for a lot of negotiation as it happened for the other Karnataka 3 projects. Get all the documentation in place, know what you want from it, but don't try to start negotiating on frequency or delivery and all of that. And also make sure that there is a template for the concession agreement along with the bid documents, so that the bidders know what is in the game and what they have to bid for. And I think that process will speed up the whole program of this whole process of negotiations. The other thing which Stephen also pointed out is this whole system of allocating projects. Right? Yes, we are going through a bidding process now, but the master plan for the basins has to be prepared. And from there, we should look at details of each one of these projects. Again, what do we want to achieve from our resources? That should be the focus. There's a long way for us to go right now. We've had these options already, but are they the optimal ones? There's room for discussion on that. I think Mr. Agrawal has already pointed out about getting one developer to the entire basin. Again, this is very good from point of view of river basin management, optimization of productions, and all of that. So we have really thought through that. We're just giving out licenses, inviting bids. So a lot of things to be done.
Well, thank you. I think we've come to the close of this program. I think there were a lot of takeaways, from our discussions. I'd like to really thank the panelists, Alan, Mr. Agrawal, Stefan, Vidya, and Sandeep for a very educative and a lot of value addition. I think there is for everyone to take away. Thank you very much. Please give them a big hand.
We have the cocktail party ready at the garden area of the hotel, so everybody can just change a little bit in business casual, so we can join the party, and I'll see you guys later on. Thank you very much.
I thought he was a little bit. Yeah.
And you're a Nepalese company. My
Oh, Miss Lily, I was searching for you. Okay, write the name and organization. I'll give you.
No. That's a memento from the...
Yes, from EDC and Driving Castle. Now you are going to get this.
Water transfer from another valley to another valley. And many of these problems that you mentioned, you and also your system, December we started looking
That's the equal to us. The time of commission when we survive the biggest question mark.
You actually ADV? So we will get money back. Because it's our money.
excess money we get.
This is our saving.
Part of the beautiful.
Is this yours? Okay, so. Okay. And this is the conference room. And do you have okay. Oh, you come together with. Yeah, I'm just a guy. Okay, so that's a conference room. Go to the end of this room. My colleague Flora will be here, and you met him. She's the girls with the long hair. She'll be in charge of all the sessions. You can talk to her. That's right. That's right.
Can I have this?
Yes, sure.
I have written the replies to your discussion.
不太现实啊。也可以，那可以啊，就是做买方新的嘛，那做买方新的也可以啊，这个完全可以。然后
in the cashier in the supermarket.
to see still we have so many people for the Day 1 conference. We also have a pretty tough schedule to catch. So I would kindly request that all the speakers in today's session would keep exactly and trying to keep it, the length of the presentation within 20 minutes. And I will give you a hint, when there's only 5 minutes left. So hope you understand. Without any further ado, let me have the honor to introduce you the first speaker of today's session, Mr. Surendra Rajbandari, who's the Deputy Managing Director of Nepal Electricity Authority. He is presently working at the Deputy Managing Director and has been with NEA for more than 32 years in various capacities. And he currently is at the head of the Project Management Directory, which is mainly responsible for coordinating, monitoring, and implementing some of the important and critical transmission line of the National Transmission Grid system. So let's give a big hand to Mr. Rajbandari.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think since I'm the first speaker, probably this might not be very interesting presentation to all of you, but I'll try my best to keep it up with the time. And I know that when we talk about the markets, for the investors, probably investors for the sectors, the topic might be very, very interesting. But since the transmission line has unique characteristics, it might not be interesting. I'll try my best to make it interesting. I have been given the topic analysis of power transmission market in Nepal and opportunities and challenges. And to begin with, I'll just provide an overview of the Nepal power system. We have got a very small system with about 900 megawatt of installed capacity. It's under construction. There are many hydropower projects with the installed capacity of about 1,900 megawatt. We will have the transmission networks of about 2,800 circuit kilometers. The transmission network extends from eastern part of the country to the western part of the country, covering the entire length of the country. And then the grid solicitation capacity is about 2,000 MVA. The only good thing is our peak demand is growing at an annual rate of 10%, whereas the energy growth rate is about 8.5%. From Nepal's perspective, why do we want to extend and reinforce our transmission system? The basic purpose of transmission expansion and reinforcement is to alleviate the congestion and improve system reliability, to increase the ability to distribute available power to meet existing and future demand, to meet NEA's contractual obligations for transmission with various power producers, to increase NEA's ability to import or export power, basically with India, and to prevent equipment overloads and low voltages. These are the purposes of the transmission system expansion. Basically, when we talk about transmission system expansion plan, NEA will reduce the transmission expansion plan, but unfortunately for the last decade, we actually did not carry out the updating of the transmission plan. NEA simply carried out a grid impact study for the private sector hydropower projects. And for the past few years, the country has been going through the biggest energy crisis ever. We have been going through the power cuts, and in order to mitigate the power cuts, the government came up with various plans, of which 2 plans were discussed and debated largely. 10,000 megawatts in 10 years and 25,000 in 20 years. This led to the preparation of the ad hoc plan, and this ad hoc plan was basically designed to ease evacuation of power to be generated by the private sector. And if you look at the Department of Electricity Development, it has already issued survey license for more than 9,000 megawatt of hydropower projects. And important transmission links were identified, and these links were undertaken for construction. And the bad thing about it was the plan was silent how these links would be implemented, and this ad hoc plan actually failed to address the problem, and this compelled NA to come up with the full-fledged transmission expansion plan, which now I will be calling it Transmission Expansion Plan 2016. This covers the entire country. This is based on the river zone. Nepal has been divided into 6 zones. Zone 1, Setia and Samilia corridors. Zone 2 is Karnali, Nalsagar corridor. Zone 3 is Kaliganj, Butulborn. Zone 4 is Kathmandu. Zone 5, Khimti, Dudkosi, and Zone 6, eastern part of the country, Orun Kosi. If you look at this figure, we have 4 river basins, Malkali, Karnali, Gandaki, Kosi, and these 6 zones cover these river basins. The new plan considers locations and nominal power of future hydropower plants up to 2025, and then all the existing and committed networks have been considered in the plan. Technical economic optimization has been carried out to arrive at the transmission expansion plan. The core of the transmission networks is to be developed within the next 10 years by 2025. So even though the plan covers long period, 20 years up to 2035, but the core networks will be developed by 2025. The plan aims at providing reliable and efficient transmission networks, and the transfer capacity when the plan is realized will be about 18,000 megawatt. The network should be able to evacuate transfer power in the range of somewhere 18,000 megawatt. Plan basically considers 2 scenarios, weight minimum load and maximum generation, and dry peak load and low generation. And the investment required is around $4 billion, but that does not include the right-of-way cost. If we add that, then probably the investment cost will be around $7 billion. I think I will not go through all these things. Basically, we have, I think, another presentation lined up in the afternoon, and my colleagues will be discussing about the projects that will be undertaken for development. And basically, this new plan also recommends future transmission network of Nepal is structured around 2 functions. One is for the domestic demand, and another is for the export of power. And they have come up with the recommendation how the sector reforms will be undertaken. Stage 1, this is where we stand right now. Then stage 2 and stage 3, basically this will be these stages will be realized in a span of 5 to 8 years time. And basically, if you look at the proposed sector reform, is Nepal will be going for competition, unbundled deregulated system. And if you look at the total investment, this is from the first period is between 2015 and 2019. The second one is 2020 and 2024, 6,674. If you talk about the challenges, I have basically categorized the challenges into two: planning, legal, implementation. When if you look at the planning challenges from planning perspective, there is no central planning body, there is no standard, and we are facing a planning dilemma with regard to the size of the transmission capacity of the transmission line. Some people say that okay, the line, the grid should be developed for evacuating 40,000 megawatts. Some people say 10,000 megawatts. We are still facing that dilemma, and there is no cost recovery system at present because the transmission line construction in Nepal is very, very difficult and painful. The cost of the transmission line is less, but the right of way cost far exceeds the cost of construction almost 2 times. From legal and regulatory perspective, yes, EIA and IE is a big hurdle. Then licensing is another area where I think the improvement is required. And then currently there is no regulatory body. Regulatory in the sense that no one is there to come up with the winning prize. The country does not have the grid code, and policy clearance is a big challenge. When you come to the implementation side, we often face the NIMBY issues, not in my backward. Even the people, those are not related, they come up with different kind of demands. We have the land and right of way problem, and the law and order situation currently is not very reasonable because Nepal is going through the political transition. Then we have the environmental problem, even manpower sometimes is not available, and of course funding remains a big gap. The funding, basically the right of way cost. This is, you see, this is the right of way, this is where we have the problem. I have analyzed, having said that, okay, there are many problems. I have analyzed the cost and benefits of the transmission networks in Nepal. And if you look at the red line, this is the cost. The net benefits is the green, and the cost is yellow. Revenue is the right, and it still provides a very good return for the simple case. And when if you improve the benefits, if you evaluate the cost and benefits by taking into consideration the right of way cost, then it goes down for a period of 35 years. And see when the license generally is provided for 30-35 years, and if the license period is decreased, then if you look at the cost and benefit, it is still economically viable. It still provides a very good signal. But what happens when we have been talking about the evacuation of thousands, millions units of energy flows, but if you consider the 20% reduction in the expected energy flow, then again it goes down. So basically when you look from the transmission market perspective, basically the two critical areas, the transmission networks will not be, the development of transmission networks will not be viable under two cases: when you consider the right of way cost, and when you think that the energy flows expected will be less than the benchmark. So that is why probably we need to ensure that we need to increase the domestic demand. Probably export is one option. We have been talking about SAARC grid, South Asian region, and export of energy to India. Even for transmission networks to be viable, we need to develop our domestic markets, and the government has to ensure that the right of way issues are taken care of. These are the two critical areas, and from the economic viability perspective of the transmission lines, and if we are able to do that, yes, then the transmission Nepal provides the good market for transmission network developments. Whether you are interested in undertaking the development yourself or you, also the opportunity exists in the form of contracting and other things. And with this, I'd like to conclude. Transmission is something which requires the unified effort, and this is just like joining the hands together as to make the picture. Thank you very much, and if you have any queries, I will take that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So maybe we can open the floor for one question. So that any of us.
When the regulatory commission is likely to be in place?
Hopefully by the end of this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so in the next two sessions, we're going to hear from our Indian counterparts from a cross-border interconnectivity prospect. So let me have the honor to introduce you first, Sri R.P. Sashmal, who's the Director of Operations Department of Power Grid Corporation of India. And Mr. Sashmal has been the Director for the Operations Department of Power Grid Corporation of India since 2012, and prior to taking up this assignment, he was the Executive Director of Operation Services in the company, and he has more than 35 years of experiences in the power sector, and has the capability to handle multidisciplinary functions such as planning, monitoring, and implementation of HVDC projects, EHV transmission system, and load dispatch and communication systems. So let's give a big hand to Mr. Sashmal.
Good morning, everybody. I will start where our Deputy MD has concluded. So first of all, let me thank the organizers for inviting us. And this cross-border, we have already the connections and the future plan up to like 2035. The transmission corridors, but before that, I just like to highlight some of the Indian power sector. At least once you go interconnection with Nepal, at least we must understand. Maybe most of you may be a revision. So I will go through few slides with Indian power sector, the key players, then the SAC connectivity. Then of course the interconnection with Nepal and the future plan and where. So with this, I think, as you know, electricity is a concurrent subject, and both the center and state government are responsible for overall development of power sector. If you look into the central level, we have a Central Electricity Authority. They are basically prospective planning and National Electricity Plan. And the generators, of course, you know, there are public sectors and also private players. And for the interstate transmission systems, we have central transmission utilities that assignment has given to Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Presently, Power Grid playing the role of CTU, Central Transmission Utility. There are, of course, private transmission license. Similarly, in the state level also, we have generators like state public sectors then private sectors, IPPs, intrastate transmission systems, state transmission utilities, then also private transmission licenses, and of course so many states, so many distribution companies, and of course in the consumer side is the industrial consumers, household, agricultures. And to integrate all these things and to do our operations, we have a power system operators. This is a POSOCO. They are overall operating the system in India. There are power exchange, and it is a vibrant market, and the traders. These are all in place, and we are going through the very dynamic situations now. Now, if you look at the key transmission players in the transmission sector, we have a regulatory authority who issues the transmission license, adopt tariff-based competitive bidding prices, approved tariff-based tariff for in case of regulatory assets. And we have central transmission utilities, that is power, is planning, development, operating interstate transmission assets, providing non-discriminatory open access. That is more important in the market. We have Central Electricity Authority, they are the technical wing of the Government of India, and they also do the prospective plan for next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. And that is, of course, as you know from 2011, that is all the transmission lines will come under tariff-based competitive bidding. So for the competitive bidding purpose, there is a bid process coordinator, that is rural electrification and power finance corporations. And also Power Grid nowadays also participates in the tariff-based competitive biddings. And there are other private players in the transmission business. Now let us look into the transmission systems and what is the Indian power scenario at present. And the total installed capacity is now 303 gigawatts. And peak demand is 153.3 gigawatts. Whereas renewable energy is now has been gone on to 42.8 gigawatts. And the growth rate is 8 to 9%. But if you look to the mix of this coal is 61%, hydro 14%, renewable 14%, nuclear is 2%, and diesel 0.3%, gas is very, very minor. But if you look into the transmission systems, now we have already a 1200 kV substation operating. Recently we have operating 1200 kV substations, there is a test station, but it is in operations. That means we have now 35 manufacturers from India. They are now get qualified for a 1200 kV transmission lines. And we are now building a transmission line from Wardha to Aurangabad. This is 363 kilometers. This line will be presently charged at 400 kV and subsequently maybe another 3-4 years time will be charged at 1200 kV. So if you see the network, it is now mostly the 760 kV. We are making a big transmission network of 760 kV. 400 kV transmission network also on construction, but more is on 760 kV side. We have already 500 kV HVDC transmission systems, and we have already 800 kV HVDC transmission system. One is under operation, one is under I can say start with the pre-commissioning activity, second part, and third one is in the tendering stage. So these all three HVDC projects are 800 kV plus minus with 6,000 megawatt of power. And total transmission, if you see this circuit kilometers are 342,000 almost. And by 2017 March, it will be 373,000 circuit kilometers. And if you see the transmission capacity, you see now we have put maximum transmission capacity is now coming under semi-static systems. Now it is 155 MVA, 1000 MVA. And of course, total is coming 710,137 MVA. Now, but if you see the energy resources of India, these are all hydro, basically, and these are all the coal-based. And if you see northeastern and northern, very difficult terrain. And coal we have in the center, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh. But there is mostly in the forest, but there is a lot of coal blocks here. And renewable energy, that is in the most of the states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Rajasthan. And government has a plan of adding 175 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2022. So it is a major challenge for all of us to integrate renewable energy with our normal systems. So if you see this, and all the loads are on this side, all the generation are on this side. So you have to make long transmission systems to meet the load. So if you see here also, this northern regions, this is because this is basically snow-fed run of the rivers, high weather sensitive loads. Once you have weather changes, the load demand also changes drastically. Similarly, in the northeastern side, very low load, but very high potential of hydro. But we have evacuation issues because there is a chicken neck. We have 22 km by 18 km here. But anyhow, we have planned for next 10-15 years. We have put 4 corridors for 6,000 megawatt. That means we have taken care of 24,000 megawatt with addition to whatever is already existing from northeast to rest of the country. 4 HVDC have been planned for 800 kV, and we have already built the transmission line in this 18 km corridor. So that if somebody is having this generation in the hydro generation here, evacuation is not no issue for them. Similarly, coming to the eastern region, we have very low load but high cold region, basically peat-head based. And on this western side, more on load on agricultural loads, industrial loads. And of course, southern region, 40% is agricultural load. So if you see here how we have developed the national grid, first initially it is 1950s or something like that, it's all local. 50 to 60 it is the state grid. 70 to 80 we started a regional grid with the transfer of power from the central generating stations. Then 90s interconnecting regional grids, and along with the HVDC system, because all 5 regions, electrical regions, is connected with, have a different frequency. So they all connected with the HVDC back-to-back stations. Now 2000 onwards, 2010, now it is one nation, one grid and one frequency for Nepal people. So Nepal is suffering from acute power shortage scenario of 12 to 13 hours that has been informed. So this has the existing lines, they are now drawing about 300, 320 megawatt. So 2 numbers of 132 kV line under implementation, that is the Kataya to Kusar and the Raksal to Paravan Kumkur. That is, they can draw another 100 to 250 megawatt. And charging of Muzaffarpur Dalkebad station, 400 kV line at 220 kV. That will draw another 120 megawatt. That is supposed to be targeted in October 16. I do not know exactly that Nepal authority can confirm it. So you can total will be about 540 to 590. But my main target is that what we have discussed earlier also, charging Muzaffarpur Dalkebad at 400 kV at 400 kV. So we can draw about 300, 400 more than that also. In -1 condition, you can draw 500 megawatt or more. So about 800 to 900 megawatt can be drawn, so that power scenario of Nepal can increase tremendously. So I think the second cross-border interconnection is essential for a synchronous operation, because if you see, we have made the studies, if you find there is a tripping of the 220 kV line, a 400 kV line, Muzaffarpur, it's a completely grid disturbance in Nepal. So second circuit is essential if you want a synchronous operation. So that has been thought of now, and maybe Gorakhpur to New Butwal is the second circuit. 400 kV quad line, each line can carry about 1500 megawatt, so 3000 megawatt. So if you see, presently these are the interconnections, and this is the generation that has been already planned, that has already been presented before, so I don't have to. But by 2035, 24.4 gigawatt power surplus is available within Nepal. And with the time frame, these are the maximum export and additional cross-border connections. So these are the transmission lines, and if you see here, these are the transmission lines. These are 6 transmission line corridors, and each is carrying about 1500 megawatt circuits. So this is about 4 circuits. So these already has been planned, And one is already, as you know, Muzaffarpur, Dalkawar is already charged at 130 kV. And others are in sequence already planned. So that is one of this issue that October 16 and December 17, we must stick to the target of charging at 400 kV. And second, cross-border interconnection, if we want a synchronous operation with India, then
Thank you very much again. So let me try to introduce you the next speaker of the day, Mr. Ajit Kumar, who's the Director of Powertrain Corporation India Limited. Ajit has 35 years of experiences in the power sector, and he has been serving NTPC for a very long time. And his areas of expertise includes design, quality assurance, renewable energy, and nuclear power as well. So from as BD executive, he has successfully concluded 1,320 megawatt super thermal power project in Bangladesh and 500 megawatt in Sri Lanka. From the commercial aspect, he has successfully realized the sales of 40,000 megawatt power of NTPC, and he joined PTC last year as head of commercial and operation department. Let's give a big hand to Ajit.
Very good morning to all of you. Thank you very much to the organizer for inviting PTC for giving a presentation on power trading and how these trading activities can be brought to the Nepalese power situation. But before we discuss that, how this power trading can come to the Nepalese power sector, but let us see how this power trading developed in India. Because in India it developed very recently. It's almost 15 years back when we started this power trading. The situation was same as we have here earlier. So we will just discuss few slides on power trading, the key concepts in trading, and then we will relate it to the power trading concepts in Nepal. So I have included some slides on the power trading. The trading started in India in 1999 when the government of India formed PTC. This was formed by 4 power sector companies of PSUs under government of India. The basic purpose of PTC was to promote power trading, attract investment in the power sector, so that power can be procured by the PTC and sold to the DISCOMs, because in the country there existed multiple sellers and multiple buyers. That is the primary condition for trading. And then creating a power market. That means power market means you have an exchange. Exchange was created by the PTC. This company was promoted by, as I told you, NTPC, Power Grid, PFC and NHPC. These are the 4 major power sector companies in the government of India. Emergence of PTC indicated that trading is an activity which can be given a boost, and it became a part of the Electricity Act. This company was initiated by the government of India but is now a private company. The government of India has divested its shares. So we are listed on the BSE and NSE in 2004. Widely held by institutions. This is the journey of PTC, and the first transactions with Nepal started in 2008 when the power to Nepal was sold from India, and PTC on its journey established 2 subsidiary companies. In 2007, PTC Financials to invest in the power projects which were being developed by the private companies who were not able to access finances, and then it established PTC Energy, which basically started supplying coal to these companies initially, and now it is into asset building. And then we were listed on the browsers. We are exporting power to Bangladesh, as our friend Mr. Asman has told, that 500 megawatt link is there. After that 500 megawatt, 250 megawatt is being sold by PTC on commercial terms. It was sourced from the market through a tender, and there are other long-term contracts with Bhutan which are happening. The PTC is now an integrated player. If you see, we started with there's a domestic over-the-counter market available, where we do short-term, medium-term and long-term trades with the utilities. Retail open access, the consumers which have a 1 megawatt, more than 1 megawatt requirement can buy power through the exchange or through PTC on a short-term contract. And then there is a cross-border trade which has started. We are helping in investment in the power sector through PTC Financials, and buying power from this, which helps the power projects to do the financial closures. We started helping some of the power projects with coal import as well, so that they can generate more power and feed to the nations. And we are into advisory services. We are promoting renewables. Now there's a lot of thrust in renewables in the country, as Mr. Sumar told that we have a plan of putting around 175 gigawatt by 2022 from 45 gigawatt. So there's a huge market available for selling that power in the country. If you look at the shareholding of PTC as of now, the promoters are holding only 16%, 4% by each company. 44% is being held by the domestic investors, and 40% is being held by the foreign institutional investors. So there is an attractive market available in the country, and the trade in the PTC trade in the market has gone up from 1.6 billion unit to 37 billion unit in 2015. There is a growing demand of the power on the trading and on the exchange. And in 2016, there was a total market of volume in 120 billion unit which was traded on the market without any long-term contract, out of which 42 billion unit were traded by PTC. And PTC had a share of 35%, and the total traded volume has gone up from 95 billion unit to 120 billion unit, indicating an increase of 27% in 1 year itself. Initially, before the power market was open to traders, there was a single monopoly. There were SEBs and private agencies who were producing power and selling only to SEBs. The long-term capacity was tied up for the long term itself. Price was being settled by the state and central governments. There were no role by any buyers. Today the regulator is there. They can go to the regulator and seek a change in prices. Entire sector was developed on fixed rate returns. But today it is changing. Now the market forces are playing a big role. Now power has become as a resource for earning revenue, which was earlier not there, with the entry of PTC and other traders. This is the market scenario which is happening, which has changed. Initially it was from generator to transmission to DISCOM and retail and the consumer. There was one line. Then came the multiple generators, but there were transmission and the SVs, that means the single buyer was there, the SEBs were there, but the DISCOMs had to buy only from these people. Subsequently came many DISCOMs, so now they had the opportunity to go to many generators. Here came the role of traders, and we propose to go to this place, this side, where there will be competition in retail also. That means content and carriage will also be separated in the DISCOMs, and there will be total freedom for a consumer to buy power from anyone in any region. That is the area of trading which we are expanding. Today, if you see the trading, the long-term trading is 60%, the short-term is 30 to 40%, and power exchange is 10%. PTC is also into long-term because some of the power sector, some of the power projects which are developed with the financial closure of PTC, the long-term contract was signed by PTC, but PTC is playing a major role in these two markets basically. And the power market is now evolving, and there is a strong market available for capital funding and the trade of power from one place to other place, from one DISCOM to other DISCOM. This has not come. The short-term volume have increased tremendously. Power trading growth, if you see, the volume has grown from 22 billion units to 105 billion units. The exchange has been established in 2008, and the power being 95% power is being exchanged through day-ahead market, which means that you plan on 24 hours in advance, and you can buy and sell power on a 15 minutes slot. Each day is divided into 96 slots. The prices are determined by each slot through the power exchange. And now the term-ahead market has also been started, where you can buy continuous power for 3 hours in advance. And renewable energy certificates are also being exchanged on the PTC, on the trading. These were the various instruments which played a big role for the trading activities to come into play. The pioneer role initiated development of short-term power market, transition from cost-based return to market-based returns, value for power where market-based price were discovered, optimal utilization generating capacity, short-term trading where Mr. Sasmal has told that some of the power stations are not operating because of the merit order dispatch, increased generating capacity, there is a long-term trading is available, and development of power exchange. This has all happened because of the concept of power market was established and people accepted this. There is a credible intermediary in the form of PTC, which is ensuring a payment security mechanism to the seller, as well as they will keep on collecting money from buyer, but seller gets the money immediately so that he can keep on running the plant. He doesn't have to take loan for working capital. Then we have gone to weekly billing to reduce the credit risk. The seller can pay the money on weekly basis. If he doesn't pay, then we have a right to divert the power to some other buyers. Then the relationship of trust and transparency has developed between the buyer, seller, and the trader in between. There is a comfort to developer of power projects by addressing market risk, which PTC takes care of that. And we are able to design products which is in the benefit of developer as well as of the buyers. This is playing a very catalyst role for bringing private investment in the sector, because they are assured of payment when they sell power from PTC. They don't have to depend on the buyers to pay money in 1 week time, 10 days time, or 60 days time as per the regulation. If you see the category of buyers, they are state utilities and distribution licenses who buy power from different sources, and then there are industries. But these people buy power from the state generation companies or private generation companies. There is a long-term sourcing from NTPC, NHPC, Nuclear Power Corporation. There is an ultra mega project under case 2 bidding, pooling. In India, the power projects are now being developed on case 1 and case 2 bidding. In case 1 bidding means if a long-term tender comes, any buyer or the state discom says that I want to buy 1000 megawatt power starting from say March 2017 for next 3 years. The bidder has to arrange the power from any power station. They have to arrange the coal, everything. They have to supply power. The corridor also has to be arranged by them. And in case 2 bidding, the bidder is arranging the land, clearances, coal. The procurer, the bidder will come out with only a tariff that I will supply you power at this tariff, single tariff. In our country, 2 mega projects have been developed, 2 ultra mega projects of 4000 megawatt each. One on imported coal, one on Indian coal, and the power sale from these 2 projects have already started. So these are the various opportunities available for enhancing the power exchanges between India and Nepal. And if you look at this slide, where we see that in the coming years, during the dry season, there is a shortage of so much million units, megawatt and million units, and there is so much of surplus. So this shortage and surplus can be matched through banking arrangement and sale of power on the power exchange. Thank you very much. And if you have any queries, you can reach me at this.
Thank you very much.
I hope I
very precise.